This is the Gooshbagz Fantasy Football League podcast with your host, Jason Peck. Hey, you Gooshbagz, welcome into week 1 of the 2022 Gooshbagz Fantasy Football League podcast. I am your host, as always, the commissioner of the Gooshbagz Fantasy Football League, Jason Peck. I'm here all by myself this week as Mr. 4QBs is too busy this week to record with me. So, to be fair, I didn't really give him much of an option. I'm only free basically on Wednesdays, so got lots of stuff going on. Free on Wednesdays to do my recordings. So, you guys, make sure your Wednesdays are free. I'm so excited to be back here this year. There's nothing better than the football season, and I'm looking forward to spending that with you guys. Now let's get it started. This week's injuries.
How is he running with a broken leg? Dog, I gotta do this shit. I put the team on my fucking back, though. My leg broke. I don't know how the fuck I'm running right now, though.
That's right. I got all sorts of new drops this year, but don't worry, I still have the old ones. So let's play that background music for this terrible, terrible section or segment. Unfortunately, Dak Prescott broke his hand and had to have surgery done. Apparently he's not on IR, so he could be back within the month. But rip to Dak Prescott. Next is Elijah Mitchell. He has some sort of knee injury. I don't know if it's been disclosed what kind of knee injury, but he's out for 6 to 8 weeks, maybe. He is on IR. Next, we have Keenan Allen with a hamstring strain. He could be out for a week or two. I don't think it's actually that bad. We've also got T. Higgins. He had a concussion. He's on the concussion protocol. I'm not 100% sure if he's going to miss this week, but it would be sad if he did. Chris Godwin had a hamstring strain, and he's going to be out for, I think, at least a couple weeks. It didn't really specify how long. At first, they thought it was going to be longer. Now it's not that long, I guess. And last but not least, Najee Harris. He hurt his foot during the game. I'm not really sure if he's going to be back, but he says he can play this week. But Mike Tomlin says he's not sure. If only he were young and, that confident again or something like that. So, I'm not 100% sure if Najee's going to be back, but there's a possibility. So, not too bad. Not too bad of a first week of injuries besides a Dak Prescott broken hand, which has its repercussions for many different players in the league. But anyways, that's right. That's my transition music or transition noise, boys. We're moving on to the top scorer of the week, which was, of course, I called it before going into the week. The more the merrier, starting his campaign of destruction amongst the Gooshbagz Fantasy Football League. We put up 133.12 fantasy points, so of course I got that.
Alexander Hamilton.
That's right. I got my $10. Like I told you guys, it really doesn't feel like I received $10 because I already have your guys' money, so I'm just hanging on to it until I don't have to pay any of it back because I'm going to win. Like I said, every week I'm going to win. And I'm going to win the championship. So I guess the only money I'm handing out is second and third place. So we are moving on to matchup reactions for the week. Last week's head-to-head results. That's right, boys. That's right. Matchup number 1, we got The More the Merrier versus Team Buck Nasty 20, which is, to be honest, just Aaron's team or username. So please change your team names to something cool and fun that I get to say on the podcast. That always makes it more fun. But the more the merrier. Took care of Team Buck Nasty, 133.12 to 116.86. Like I said, the campaign has begun. I'm 1-0. Here we go. I was led this week by Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown stack. They really helped me this week, putting up 24 and 20 fantasy points. And also my my running backs didn't really hurt either, with 25 fantasy points each, Jonathan Taylor and DeAndre Swift. So they were holding it down. I left some points on the bench, though. Jahan Dotson, Christian Kirk, both had 14 and 16 points. And Cordero Patterson, I left 21 fantasy points on the bench. However, I can't be too mad because I won the week. I didn't really have... I guess I had one dud. I had David Njoku, who has now been kicked off of my team. So, goodbye. You didn't make the cut. You're out. My late tight end sleeper pick from the draft did not pan out, and I'm not going to ride the Jacoby Brisket train this entire year, wondering whether or not my tight end is going to get some targets. So on Aaron's team, we did have some pretty good games from Justin Herbert, who put up 23 fantasy points, which is fine. Travis Kelce put up a monster game. He scored 21 more points than my tight end, so that was definitely a definite benefit. But the rest of my team really made up for that. He didn't really have... Travis Etienne had a rough day because James Robinson was a beast this week. I'm so excited about him. I'm so glad that he came back off an Achilles, which nobody has really ever done. He is back, and he got 2 touchdowns, 66 yards. He is a monster, and I'm so stoked that he's back. Aaron did not play his optimum lineup this week. He did have James Robinson on the bench. He did have Patrick Mahomes on the bench. Actually, both of those in there might have given him the victory over me. James Robinson would have given him an extra 12 points over Travis Etienne, and Justin Herbert scored 11 less points than Patrick Mahomes, so that would have made it a close game. You would have won. You would have won if you had played your optimal lineup, but then again, I left some points on the bench too, so that's just sometimes how it goes. Now, moving on to matchup number 2, we've got Fields of Kittlecorn versus the Young Hoes. And the Young Hoes took care of the Fields of Kittlecorn, 108.68 fantasy points to 86.22 fantasy points. Josh Allen led the way for the Young Hoes, putting up 31 fantasy points. And that was like the majority of his team. I guess Josh Allen and Younghoe Koo, which I think is technically more appropriate, and also his name, combined for like 50 of his fantasy points. So they 2 of his players put up half the points on his team. So he should be so lucky because everybody else didn't really do so hot. Mike Evans did all right. Leonard Fournette did pretty good, but Alvin Kamara only put up 6 points. DK Metcalf only put up 5. Mike Williams only had 2 catches for 10 yards in a game where Keenan Allen went out. So I'm not 100% sure what happened with Mike Williams that game, but he only got 2 fantasy points. On the other side, you'd think that, maybe people had a better game or I guess you'd assume that they'd all had worse games on Fields of Kittlecorn, but nope, he just didn't have the 2 monster games from the kicker and his quarterback. He had a decent game from Kyler, 20 fantasy points. He had a total of 2 gooses. Bringing back the goose. 2 gooses on the fantasy team. We had Cam Akers, who had 3 carries for 0 yards. And Irv Smith in the tight end position had no catches on 2 targets. So that was an epic fail on both of their accounts. He did have to fill in for George Kittle, who missed... George Brittle, who missed the game due to injury. We're back on that Kittle train of being brittle, so it is aptly named. Other than that, Yeah, I mean, Devontae Adams also had a great game. So you had half your points from Kyler Murray and Devontae Adams. So Deventi, as we say, as Courts has aptly named him. Deventi, yes, like the coffee, like the 20 ounces of coffee that you should be getting with a venti. So yeah, there you go. Courts, just he's got some other options to play here, so hopefully he's not playing Cam Akers. He also picked up Jeff Wilson, who is now the starter for the 49ers, presumably. So he should be a good plug and play this week. Put down enough money on him. I think it was like $25. I bid 17 and I was second, and that kind of made me sad. So. But that's all right. My team is monstrous, so I don't need his help. On to matchup number 3. We've got Cooking Some Lamb versus Team B Mets 89. Once again, change your team name. We got Team B Mets 89. Brandon's team put up 116.2 fantasy points to Neil's Cooking Some Lamb, 91.26 fantasy points. So starting over with Team B Mets, we did have a monster game from Justin Jefferson because the Packers defense, for some reason, was just playing a bunch of zone on Justin Jefferson, and all he did was sit in pockets where the zone wasn't and just destroyed the Packers. So that was a lot of fun to watch as a Packer fan. But everybody else on your team was just kind of like average. They put up like decent enough games so that it didn't kill you. Your Baltimore's defense put up 14 fantasy points, so that was good. That fourth down stop coming in handy. You got a point off of that, so that's fun. And yeah, everybody else, like I said, was just kind of average. Mark Andrews was fine. Cortland Sutton had 9.2 fantasy points. So like he was fine as well. Like, it was just kind of an average game overall. And you're expecting those players to be putting up a little bit better points, and maybe not Justin Jefferson putting up 34 points each week, which I'm sure you would love anyway, but that's all right. On the other side of the ball, Neil had Cooking Some Lamb, had the unfortunate, what am I trying to say here? He had the unfortunate circumstance of having Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb stack in his lineup. Unfortunately, as we were saying, Dak broke his hand in the middle of the game. He had already thrown 29 completions, and it hadn't looked that good in the process. So to be honest, like it was already kind of looking rough before he got hurt, and then after he got hurt, it just kind of made it worse. CeeDee Lamb had 11 targets and only 2 receptions for 29 yards, so that was definitely rough for him. He did have Michael Pittman putting up a big game in the flex this week with 22.6 fantasy points. Michael Pittman is going to be a beast this year. He's like the only target in Indianapolis that really is reliable right now, so Matt Ryan keeps throwing to him, which makes sense. Debo had a decent 11 points. James Conner had 14. That's pretty good. And then Dalvin Cook had 12, so that's all right. You're really expecting more from Dalvin Cook, especially when he has 20 carries. But all the touchdowns went to Justin Jefferson, so there's that. That's just how the game went. So, unfortunately, team didn't quite do it this week, Neil. But better luck next time with Carson Wentz as your quarterback. On to matchup number 4. We've got Team CM Keen versus Team Go Clifford. Go Clifford, go Clifford, go Clifford. All right, Team Go Clifford lost this week. He was taken down by Team CM Keen, a.k.a. Chad. He put up 122.6 fantasy points to Go Clifford's 112.62 fantasy points. This was kind of a close one. Pretty close one. I don't know if it was the closest one in the league, but it was pretty close. We had big games from Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Cooper Kupp kind of leading your team this week, and Amon-Ra St. Brown not too far behind. Some pretty big games from them. Kind of got a disappointing start from Matt Stafford. He did have 3 interceptions in the Thursday night game, but the Stafford-Cooper Kupp stack, got you some points on Thursday night. Kyle Pitts was kind of a disappointment this week. He only had 2.9 fantasy points, so not that great. You also had your defense put up, the Chargers defense put up 17 fantasy points, so that was massive for Team CM Keen. On the other side, Lamar Jackson had 20 fantasy points. That was decent. A.J. Dillon had 17.6 fantasy points, which is kind of a surprise. He was, I know that Matt LaFleur was saying it'd kind of be a 1A, 1B, or almost 2 1A type plays, but A.J. Dillon seemed to have the bulk of the work, both running and passing. So he had a pretty massive game and had 17.6 fantasy points. Also, Tampa Bay's defense put up 16 fantasy points for you. So, and everybody else was just kind of like decent. There weren't too bad of games. Adam Thielen didn't score as much as you wanted to. Terry McLaurin did all right. He got saved by a bomb touchdown for like 50 yards or something like that. And yeah, other than that, Nick Chubb had 22 carries for 141 yards. So that got him 14.8 fantasy points because he also did have a reception there for 2 yards. So decent games overall, but and like I said, he put up a decent score with 112, but just wasn't quite enough to beat Chad this week. And the last matchup of the week we had, let's take a look. Sorry, I lost my spot. We had Waddle, baby, Waddle, baby, Waddle, baby, Waddle. Wait. Matchup number 5. We had Waddle, baby, Waddle, baby, Waddle, baby, Waddle versus Sir Lancelot, which is Adam's team, because he has the terrible Trey Lance on his team. And despite the fact that he played Aaron Rodgers this week in a major dud game, Waddle, baby, took down Sir Lancelot 113.4 to 72.36 fantasy points. To be honest, I'm really surprised that you even had a player score over 10 fantasy points with that meager total. You had Stephon Diggs with 22.2 fantasy points, but basically everybody else, disappointed. Allen Robinson had a rough game with 1.7 fantasy points. What do you do with him, man? He sucks. I don't know. He's just remnants, like flashbacks to last year. So not getting used in this Rams offense. It's only going to Cooper Kupp, so better look out for that. On the other hand, on the winning Waddle Baby, we did have Aaron Rodgers, who only had 3.7 fantasy points. So he was very much a dud. Very much a dud this week. And we had the breakout year for Joe Mixon. He had 18 fantasy points. We have prime Saquon Barkley putting up 30.4 fantasy points. He did look like prime Saquon Barkley. I'm pretty sure his nickname before the first game was Washed Up Saquon Barkley, so you better check yourself before you wreck yourself. We had the keeper, Jamar Chase, with 23.9 fantasy points. Waddle Baby coming in with 15.7, and the sad boy, Dawson Knox, only had 1 fantasy point this week. We had Rashad Penny put up 7.7. And, that's about it. Waddle Baby is 1-0. Congratulations to all you guys who won this week. Unfortunately, none of you could live up to my fantastic expectations for my team. But maybe next week, guys, you could try again. Weekly waiver wire studs.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
You're darn right, boys. This is the waiver wire team that would kick all of our asses because they're all out of bubblegum. In the QB spot, as I mentioned before, we have Carson Wentz. I mentioned him because Neil has already picked him up. He's got 27.72 fantasy points this week. In the running back 1 spot, it was a surprise. Dontrell Hilliard sitting here with 20.4 fantasy points this week. We also had Jamal Williams in the running back 2 spot with 15.5 fantasy points. At the wide receiver 1 spot, we had Devin Duvernay putting up 19.4. We had Curtis Samuel putting up 15.2. In the tight end spot with 2 catches for 2 touchdowns, we got O.J. Howard with 16.8 fantasy points. And surprise flex, the ultimate flex player, to ever play in the NFL. Taysom Hill, 14.8 fantasy points. We have a defense that came out of nowhere and put up 30 fantasy points this week against who? Oh my gosh, it was a tie. Wasn't this no, it wasn't the tie game. It was the winning. You guys won against the Bengals. Steelers had 5 turnovers against the Bengals, or 6, something like that. Something insane. Had 30 fantasy points. And the kicker, the rookie, drafted in the 4th round, Cade York, put up 16 fantasy points. The total that this team would have is 175.82 fantasy points. Not even close to us. I mean that's like way more than us. We were not even close. I was within 43 fantasy points. So the waivers are 1-0 for the year. It blew us all out of the water. It's sad. It's sad. All right, boys. On to the next section of this podcast. Next week's matchup predictions.
I can see the future! I have to stop you from destroying my race! In the future!
We already did that.
I knew you'd do that!
So this is the section where we predict the future. We predict winners for next week's matchups. Oh my gosh, I didn't have these up. I wasn't ready. All right, so we've got matchup number 1. We have the More the Merrier versus B-Mets 89. And as you all know, I'm always picking the More the Merrier to win every single darn week. So yeah, I think that Jalen Hurts stack against Minnesota, I think that's gonna be a shootout of a game. So Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown are gonna go ham. Christian Kirk, I think, can score. The Jacksonville Jaguars, I think, can score on Indianapolis. They didn't look so formidable last week. We've got Brandon Cooks in Houston versus Denver. Denver's defense did not look that great against a terrible Seattle offense. And like I said, Jonathan Taylor. DeAndre Swift versus Washington. I'm just going to destroy it. This week is going to be another monster week for me. And I picked up Robert Tonyan against the Bears because Aaron Rodgers always destroys the Bears. So it's going to be good. That's up against Russell Wilson, Derrick Henry, David Montgomery, Justin Jefferson, Cortland Sutton, Mark Andrews, Darren Waller, and Tyler Bass. So yeah, I think my team's got this in the bag. Quarterback's not as good as mine. Your wide receiver 1, maybe debatable. Justin Jefferson better than AJ Brown? I don't know about that. Cortland Sutton versus Brandon Cooks? For sure not. Darren Waller in the flex versus Christian Kirk. I got that one on lock. Yo, I got this. This is easy peasy. Not to mention, my running backs look way better than yours. Jonathan Taylor versus Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry got outscored by Dontrell Hilliard last week. Massively. And then DeAndre Swift versus David Montgomery. I'm leaving Cordero Patterson on the bench because he's a monster, but I don't even need him. It's easy. This is the More the Merrier, by far. Matchup number 2, we've got Cooking Some Lamb versus the Young Hoes. Let's take a look at this. We have a newly minted Carson Wentz versus Detroit. I think he's going to score more than that 17-point projection. We've got Dalvin Cook versus Philadelphia. We've got James Conner versus the Raiders. We got Michael Pittman, Deebo Samuel versus Seattle. We got Zach Ertz versus the Raiders. We've got CeeDee Lamb still sitting in that flex spot. Bold move putting CeeDee Lamb in that flex spot. But yeah, I mean, you can't not start him. So we're going to have to see how he does with Cooper Rush. But, we'll see how it goes. Then on the other side, on the Young Hoes, we got Josh Allen. We've got Alvin Kamara, who had a rough week last week. We've got Leonard Fournette. Also, Alvin Kamara, Leonard Fournette, and Mike Evans are all questionable this week. So we'll see how they go. Mike Evans has a calf injury. He's limited on Wednesday's practice. Leonard Fournette also limited at Wednesday's practice. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Hopefully everybody heals up here. We've got DK Metcalf as the wide receiver 2. Dalton Schultz in the tight end spot. We got Mike Williams in the flex. With a Thursday game, I would move Mike Williams out of your flex. You do not want a Thursday night player in your flex. That actually limits your flexibility for the rest of the weekend. In case somebody else, like your 3 questionable players, gets hurt. So, I would move them out of your flex if you can, Ryo. But overall, I think I've got the Young Hoes to win this matchup. I mean, just having Josh Allen, Leonard Fournette's been a beast. Mike Evans has been good. Dalton Schultz might not be as good this week without Dak, although Cooper Rush might lean on him. Who knows? Actually, you know what? The more I look at this, I mean, Josh Allen, yeah, he's a monster, but, like, he's going against Dalvin Cook, James Conner, Michael Pittman, Deebo Samuel. I like all those players. Zach Ertz is fine. CeeDee Lamb is meh, but, like, they're the same as Dalton Schultz and Mike Williams, I'd say. Man, this is tough. I think I'm going to have to go with cooking some lamb this week. I think Carson Wentz is going to put up another big game. He has a good wide receiving core. I'm going with cooking some lamb. That's surprising to me. I see some upside. All right, moving on. On to matchup number 3. We've got... Let's see. I just lost it. Team Chad Keen versus Fields of Kittlecorn, a.k.a. Andrew Kortz, who currently does not have a defense on his team. I guess he didn't want to play Cleveland's defense versus the Jets for some reason. Or no, he might have just picked up the Cleveland's defense and dropped his previous defense, which I think is true. That makes sense. So, we have Kyler Murray versus Las Vegas Raiders. That's going to be a shootout, I think. We've got Chase Edmonds, although Kyler Murray didn't look fantastic this last week. So Chase Edmonds versus Baltimore. We've got Joe Mixon versus Houston. That should be good. Devontae Adams versus Arizona. Got both sides of that matchup. Potentially a big matchup. T. Higgins versus Dallas. We'll see if he goes. If he doesn't, you have Jeff Wilson as a flex there to put in. Brandon Ayuk. Mooney would probably be better this week since it's not pouring rain. So yeah, well, you got some options there to plug in. And then Albert O in the tight end spot. Rashad Bateman currently in the flex. Evan McPherson, who had a rough week last week, is kicking for you. On the other side, we have Matt Stafford still in the quarterback spot. That's a bold move. Bold move, Chad. We've got Christian McCaffrey hitting up the Giants. We've got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who had a great week last week, versus the Chargers. That's going to be a shootout on Thursday. I'm stoked about that. We have Michael Thomas versus Tampa Bay. We have Cooper Kupp versus Atlanta. Kyle Pitts on the other side of that versus the Rams. That might be tough. Amon-Ra St. Brown versus Washington. And Brandon McManus kicking. I think on this one right now, Kortz is currently projected to lose. He also doesn't have a defense in his lineup yet, but I still think if T. Higgins plays, I'm going to go with Kortz. If T. Higgins does not play, I don't know, actually. You know what? I'm rethinking this. The quarterback position is very important. I think Matt Stafford, I don't know, he might do better this time, but I just don't, he just has he's like a floor guy. He doesn't really have much of an upside, I don't think. We have Christian McCaffrey, CEH, who is going to get all the work. I'm sorry, Kortz. Never mind, I'm flip-flopping again. I like Team CM Keen this week to win. Locking it in. All right, matchup number 3. Matchup number 4. We've got Sir Lancelot Adams' team versus Team Buck Nasty. This one is projected to be a very tight matchup. We've got on Sir Lancelot. Pardon me, I need to get my hydration. Talking a lot. We've got Trey Lance, obviously, the titular character of Sir Lancelot's team name. He's playing against Seattle, which I think will be a good matchup for him. We've got Aaron Jones versus Chicago, Austin Eckler versus Kansas City. We got Stephon Diggs versus Tennessee, Allen Robinson versus Atlanta. That's hopefully a bounce back for him, but who knows? We got TJ Hawkinson versus Washington and Zeke versus Cincinnati. Pretty solid lineup, although they didn't all perform very well last week, as we know. We've got, on the other side, we've got Justin Herbert versus Kansas City. That's going to be a matchup, especially for Justin Herbert. I think he's going to smash this week. We've got Travis Etienne versus Indianapolis. Bold move playing Etienne. After that last week of James Robinson. We've got Antonio Gibson versus Detroit. He should be pretty good. We got Tyreek Hill versus Baltimore, Jerry Jeudy versus Houston, Travis Kelce versus the Chargers, and James Robinson in the flex. Oh, so you did move your lineup around a little bit this week. You put in James Robinson in the flex. So both Etienne and Robinson in your lineup. That's about all you can do when you have 5 quarterbacks on your team. So actually 4. I keep saying 5, but you've only got 4. So there's limited options there to put in the flex position. I think I got Team Sir Lancelot this week. He's got some massive upside with his players, and they just didn't perform last week. So I am going to lock in. I'm going to go with the talent of Sir Lancelot over Team Buck Nasty. On to matchup number 5, the last matchup of the week. We've got Team Waddle Baby Waddle Baby Waddle Baby Waddle versus Team Go Go Clifford. The Battle of the Friends from Belvedere, the Belvedere Men. We've got Waddle Baby, projected to put up 121. Team Go Go Clifford, projected only 95. However, he does have Harrison Butker, who is hurt this week. He is out, already ruled out for tomorrow night's game. Otherwise, he has on his team Lamar Jackson versus Miami, Nick Chubb versus the Jets. That should be a smash. Hopefully, Kareem Hunt doesn't steal all of the touchdowns, though. We've got Najee Harris versus New England. That's going to be a tough matchup. We've got Terry McLaurin versus Detroit. We've got Adam Thielen versus Philadelphia. We've got, on the other side of that, Dallas Goedert versus Minnesota, and A.J. Dillon in the flex. So, pretty solid lineup. Pretty solid lineup. On the other side of that, I don't know why it's projected so low. I guess A.J. Dillon's only projected 10. Terry McLaurin versus Detroit, I think he's going to do better than 10 fantasy points. But Adam Thielen, I guess he had a rough time last week, so maybe they're not thinking he's going to do it so hot this week. On the other side of that, Waddle Baby, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to come off of that terrible matchup with a massive week this week against the Bears. We've got Joe Mixon versus Dallas, who Dallas's defense I think is pretty good, and that's really what they're relying on to win games. We've got Saquon Barkley versus Carolina, who now is the workhorse role. We've got Jamar Chase as a wide receiver against Dallas. Oh, man. The Bengals are just going to smash Dallas this week. We've got Gabe Davis, also as a wide receiver there, versus Tennessee, who had a great game last week. We've got Tyler Higbee versus Atlanta. And we've got Deontay Johnson in the flex. I'm going to go with Team Waddle Baby. He's just got like Joe Mixon, Saquon, Jamar Chase, Gabe Davis, like 4 potential big playmakers in this matchup. And I don't think that there's... I mean, you have a safe floor with most of those players, and the ceiling is massive. So I don't see it. I mean, there's obviously an option that you could lose, but I don't think that's going to happen. All right, that's all the matchups for this week. I think I did get a question in here from Adam. But so let's go to mail time. So I have 2 questions from Adam. I don't know what he's trying to get out of this question, but he's saying not saying your own team after week 1 who's winning the championship. I mean, if I don't say my own team, whose team would I say? Because it's going to be my team. What kind of insane question is that, Adam? That's preposterous that you think that any other team could possibly beat mine in the playoffs. I just don't see anything like that ever happening. Ever. The only person projected higher than me this week is Benaya, and like he's got some upside, sure, but like does he have Jalen Hurts, Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, AJ Brown? Like Christian Kirk? That can't be beat. Christian Kirk is the epitome of what my team represents, the underdog. But I'm not the underdog, I'm the overdog this week, so suck it. I'm going to destroy all of you this year. What team is winning after week 1? As far as I know, it's going to be my team. So, sorry, Adam. And he is also wondering what Aaron's 5 quarterback record is going to be at the end of the season. See, as Courts mentioned, he actually has a decent team outside of his 4 quarterbacks, but he really is lacking in flexibility. Like I said, he has to start both of the Jacksonville running backs this week, which I don't know if I would ever do. But so like I just have a tough time like seeing a massive upside with your team. So I think you win maybe 4. I'd say the over under is 4 games this week, especially if you this year, especially if you don't make any changes to your roster. Like if you're just kind of playing with this roster, I think maybe 3 or 4 wins is the maximum. So yeah, that's what I think. Well, guys, that was the week 1 episode of the Gooshbagz Fantasy Football League podcast for 2022. Guys, I am so stoked. Oh no! Oh, they're laughing at me. I meant to do. Cheers. Week 1 is in the books, boys. I'm looking forward to week 2. Guys, I'll see you next week when my team is 2-0, and I don't know what the rest of your teams will be, but mine's on the way to winning the championship. I'll see you guys later, alright? That's on my way out, because I'm the champion. See you guys.